So, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for making time on what is a rather dreary January afternoon to do a deep dive into the world of technology. As many of you will know, I'm CEO of Fair4All Finance, and we've been very much focusing on how we can actually really support the scaling of affordable credit through developing the growth capacity in the community finance sector as one of our key areas of growth. And we know that technology can be a massive enabler, but equally it needs to be staged in the right hands in the right way so that you can actually get the benefits. I think in terms of my career, we always had the old adage that a technology project would always take twice as long and cost twice as much as you planned it to be. So Jonathan will be using this session to really take us through the fundamentals to understand in terms of the world that we're navigating, and also to be able to really be quite discerning in how you approach your technology roadmap so that you can really think about how you invest and when you invest to make the right choices. And this is the space for any acronym and technology that you've come across, that you've read about, that you think I don't understand. This is the space to make sure that you've really got all of those insights drawn out and sucked out, because that will let us set the platform for really moving forward into the next stages. Now, we will be having questions at the end of the session. So what would be fantastic is if you can add those in via the chat, and we're also recording the call for those who can't make it. So if you've got a friend who wanted to ask a question, but they couldn't join, then please add those in and we'll make sure those are captured, so that the time you're investing is creating real benefit for lots of other people too. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Jonathan, who's going to bring you what I think will be a really interesting and inspiring session. We've had the benefit of both our team and our board sitting through it, and the board sat through it once and asked for a recording, so they wanted to watch it again. So Jonathan, no pressure, and enjoy the session. You're on mute, Jonathan.
There we are. Technologist I am. That's the first rule. Welcome everyone to this Technology 101. It's the first of the modules in our technology toolkit. And the intention of this session is to bring everyone up to a foundation layer of basic understanding of technology. But I'm going to start just with a quick introduction to myself. So I'm Jonathan Turner. I've been working with Fair4All Finance for almost 2 years now, and I'm leading on the technology strategy and innovation. I've got a financial services technology background. I started programming software in the 1990s. And then moved on through the ranks, testing, then system, then designing systems and architecting, before I then took a break and went off to do my bit in the dot-com boom. Started up a dot-com in the early 2000s, and then went back into technology at Visa. And then after Visa, went back into consulting, which is where I started my career. And during my time in consulting, I helped organizations through large technology change, technology programs, but also helped organizations to think about their IT strategy and how they manage their IT spend and investment. So I've worked with a whole range of clients, starting with Eagle Star. You may remember there was an insurance company called Eagle Star back in the 90s, and also all of the high street banks, challenger banks, and building societies. Not all building societies, but some building societies. I'm now just going to share the screen, share the presentation. Okay, so thank you to everyone for responding to the questions that we sent through with the invitation. One of the questions we asked was how familiar you were with technology, how comfortable you were with technology, and I can tell you we have the full range on this call. We have people who are very familiar and very au fait with technology and probably aren't going to learn a whole lot from this session, to people who have declared themselves as beginners and have asked that we don't use jargon and acronyms to work our way through this presentation. I will do my best. And then we're going to start off with an introduction to technology, and this is going to be agnostic to the technology base, but we're going to then apply that to community finance and look at how technology is used in community finance and how it could be used in community finance. And then we have a couple of case studies from Jeff from Central Liverpool and Simon from Clockwise, who are going to share their approaches to technology. And I think what we'll see there is the contrasting approaches of technology and the way that the same can be achieved through different means and different measures. And then we'll are going to support technology in community finance. We then got Q&A, and please do submit questions throughout the session. We'll pick up as many as we can on the call. Those that we can't, we'll pick up separately with a follow-on. So we've now got a short session. I'm afraid it's just going to be my voice you're going to be hearing for the next 25 minutes. And given that we're remote, it makes interactivity somewhat more difficult. But hopefully you're going to find this an interesting dip into technology. So this is a famous quote from Bill Gates, and it applied then and it applies now. The first rule of any technology used in a business is that automation applied to an efficient operation will magnify the efficiency. The second is that automation applied to an inefficient operation will magnify the inefficiency. And really what's important here is technology done for technology's sake is not going to achieve the business objectives. It's not going to help the business. It's not going to be a good business investment. Technology can't be done to the business. It has to be done with the business. So I'm now going to take you through the technology stack. But before I do that, just reflecting on where we are with technology. As users of technology, which is what we all are on a day-to-day basis, we've come a long way over the last 30, 40 years. We carry around a piece of kit in our pocket that's more sophisticated than the computer system that landed man on the moon. It's got a mobile phone, an iPhone, has got 100,000 times more processing power than the lunar module, the lunar landing module. It's got 1 million times more memory. And gone are the days of unpacking your video recorder and the first thing you have to do is pour your way through the instruction manual to work out how on earth you're going to turn this thing on and then let alone time a recording. These days, you get a bit of technology out of the box and we're familiar with it, we're comfortable with it, we open it up, we switch it on, and it generally takes us through how to use it, how to set it up. And also, the more that we're moving through technology, these technologies are beginning to heal themselves. So when they go wrong, they identify they've got a problem and they fix themselves. They go onto the internet and they download the latest patch and they will fix themselves. I'm sure there are a few of you in the audience who are listening to this thinking that's just not true and I wish it were, and you're cursing at your computer. It's not true everywhere. It's where we're heading, and it's where some technologies have already got to. But Technology itself has come a long way. In the 80s and 90s, someone who was writing code for a business, they needed to have an intimate knowledge of this technology stack. They really needed to understand the hardware that they were writing code for. Now, a business developer needs an intimate understanding of the business. They need to know how the business ticks rather than the underlying infrastructure. And as business leaders, you don't need to know the intricacies of this technology stack, but I really believe that if you can understand the basics, if you can get your head around the basics, then it will make you better armed for technology decisions and discussions with your technology suppliers about what the next new thing is. So we're going to work our way through this stack, and I will try to draw it out with some analogies to bring it to life, and I will also try my hardest to avoid any acronyms as we work our way through. So let's start with data. Data we positioned as the top tier of this stack. Actually, it is the lifeblood, and it flows through all of these different points in the different components of the stack. A system without data is like a city without people. It's pointless, it's a waste of money, it doesn't achieve its purpose. Data is, and within databases, which are SQL or DB2, which are names that you might have heard. Within the databases, there are tables, and the tables, the best way to think about a table is to think about how you would arrange data on an Excel spreadsheet in order to understand your financial position. The tables within a database are more sophisticated than that because they need to ensure that there is integrity of the data and that there are certain protections around the data, but fundamentally that's what it is. I'm then going to move down to the next three layers, which are all software layers, and software is quite simply a set of lines of code that are instructing the computer to do what you want the computer to do. And the core systems and applications, they kind of sit together. If you think about it in the world of a lender, the core systems might be your core banking system, loan management system, the customer relationship management system, which is managing all of your customer interactions so that you can understand where you are with each of your customers. The apps in this situation are the more peripheral augmentations to the functionality that you have in the core systems, in your core systems. And those apps communicate with your core systems via APIs. So there's my first acronym, and I'm going to break it down. So APIs are application programming interfaces. Application programming interfaces are a set of standards. They are standards that the designers of the core system will publish to say, if you want to interface with my system, this is how you need to do it. These are the standards that you need to apply. And if you want to write to my databases, this is what you need to do. If you want to read from my databases, this is what you need to do. And the analogy here could be with someone who is designing a mobile phone charger. A mobile phone charger which needs to be used all over the world. They need to understand the interfaces that they need to achieve, or that they need to be able to operate in all of the countries. And so in the UK, they need to know that they are going to be plugging in with 3 pins, that they're arranged in a particular order. It needs to satisfy certain standards for fire safety and insulation, and it needs to be able to consume from the network. From the power network, it needs to consume 240 volts AC. When you go over to America, you need to understand a whole new set of standards, and so you have 2 pins, flat pins, different positions, and it's not 240 volts, it's 110 volts. 110 volts AC, but you need to be able to operate like that. And so the different countries have published what their standards are if you want to interface with them, and then you as a designer can then go through and create something that will work in those environments. It's much the same thing. And then between the core systems and the apps and the hardware, we have the operating system. The operating system is software again, but it's software which understands what is required to make the hardware work. So operating systems that you'll be familiar with are Windows, Linux, Google. On your phone is iOS for Apple, Android for other devices, and this is the technology, this is the software that translates the business logic that has been written in the core systems and the apps into machine language, a language which the hardware will understand, which is a series of ones and zeros. But you can't expect business coders, developers, to develop in that level of language. So the operating system is there to provide that layer between the two. And then everything that you have below operating system is collectively defined as infrastructure, and that's hardware, which is anything which is physical kit. So that could be your desktop, it could be your keyboard, or the mouse that you use, or servers that you have in your office or in your data center. And that hardware communicates with itself and with the outside world through networks. And I don't plan to go into great detail with networks. Networks is a whole topic in itself. But maybe if we were to run a module on cybersecurity and resilience, we'll pick up on networks in more detail in that module. But networks are simply a way of the different pieces of kit or the different locations communicating with each other electronically. And then we have the infrastructure layer, which I've got here as being the location. So data centers or even your office being a place where your servers are located. And data centers are purpose-built buildings that have very specific requirements, and they might be dust filters, air conditioning, power supplies with a backup power supply. And when I was at Visa, we even had a tank trap around our data center in Basingstoke because we were running national or international payments infrastructure. We felt that it needed to be protected from a tank coming and running into it. So we had a trap that literally the tank would fall into if it tried to get anywhere near the data center. I'm not proposing that every community finance organization has a tank trap around it. And then we have the cloud, and the more there is, the further we go with new technologies, the more you will hear about cloud. And what the cloud is a network of servers that are run by an organization like Microsoft, like Amazon or Google, who have a network of servers that are all interacting with each other and are made available for individuals or organizations to consume, to use on a consumption basis. And what I mean by that is that rather than you needing to buy a piece of kit and have that as an asset on your balance sheet, you have a contract with a cloud provider, which may be AWS, Amazon Web Services, or Microsoft Azure. You have the contract with the cloud provider, and you buy a certain amount of processing and memory and storage from those cloud service providers. And we talk about cloud native applications. Cloud native applications are applications that have been designed specifically for the cloud. So they're not designed to run on any particular server, but they're designed to consume and work in the most efficient way possible and secure way possible in the cloud environment. A way to think about cloud is to think about, again, we're back to the electricity analogy, thinking about rather than generating your own electricity using solar panels and wind turbines or even a power station, you just plug into the national grid. and the national grid is the cloud, whereas the data center would be creating your own energy. So I've skipped the acronym of fintechs. That's because I'm just about to talk about it on this slide here. And I'm giving fintechs a full slide because I actually think that fintechs is a fairly confusing term to be used. And it's confusing because it's very difficult to define where fintechs start and mainstream technology providers take over. So fintechs, or in long form, financial technology, are companies that I think display certain characteristics. And those certain characteristics are they're technology companies who tend to deliver their services in the cloud. They tend to be entrepreneurial organizations, and they generally have a stated ambition, a stated intention to disrupt the norm. And so with that final intention of disrupting the norm, mainstream banks have looked at fintechs and they thought, well, you know, are these organizations that we should be partnering with, or are they organizations that we should be competing with? And we should keep them off our premises as best we can. That was really the mindset of 2010. Beyond 2010, fintechs have really found their feet, and mainstream banks are embracing fintechs as partners. And they're finding that by engaging with fintechs, they're able to provide innovation faster and user experiences that they wouldn't be able to do themselves on their legacy platforms. So what we've got here is a screenshot from an HSBC website from, I think it was a few years ago, because some of these fintechs have gone under. But it shows behind all of these functions on HSBC, there is a power delivered by these fintechs. The fintechs are providing a level of innovation and something that HSBC wouldn't necessarily want to or be able to provide. So HSBC is acting as the core platform that has a whole series of APIs that it opens up to fintechs to allow them to work in their environment and work for their customers. So how does this all apply to community finance? Before Christmas, we ran a survey across the sector, and we had 54 respondents from different organisations. And so thank you to anyone on the call who responded to our survey. It's given us some really rich data to understand where technology is in community finance and how we can help. Some of the findings from that survey, we've published on our website a summary of the findings on the survey, but some of the highlights that I want to bring out today are these. 94% of respondents to the survey recognised that technology was essential to their business today, which I suppose isn't surprising given the role that technology plays in our day-to-day life. But 67% of organisations that we surveyed said that it would be pivotal to their success in the next 5 years. So that's not just that they will increase their use of technology, but it will be pivotal. But that's all with a backdrop of technology budgets which are really very low. And I say they're low in absolute terms, but they're also low in proportion to operational budgets. Typically, so 50% of organisations who responded had technology budgets of under £50,000, and most of them who responded who had budgets between 50 and 150,000 were only spending between 5 and 10% of their operational expenditure on technology, which, when you compare with mainstream finance, they're spending somewhere around the 40% mark of their operational budgets on technology. And the IT capability within lenders is also varied. We found 50% of lenders had no dedicated IT person on their team at all, and 25% of the remainder, or 25%, had only one person on their team. And so with that capability and with those budgets, it then becomes hard to envisage how the use of technology as being pivotal to their success is going to be achieved. That's not saying that it's going to be impossible, but it highlights a mismatch between the expectations and ambitions and the tools that you currently have within the credit union and CDFI sector to actually enable that and facilitate that. And then something that came through on a number of responses to the survey in the verbatums, in the commentary, was comments about the credit union expansion project, leaving people feeling quite cautious about new technology and quite cautious about the promise of new technology programs transforming their business. So we need to make sure that anything that we do to help in this sector is cognizant of the experiences of the credit union expansion project. So we look at technology in community finance. I like to try and simplify it into these three pillars. And each of these pillars have different success criteria. And so when a technology decision is made about a particular stage in the loan life cycle, you need to be thinking about what you're trying to achieve and what those success criteria might be. So if we look at consumer engagement, and consumer engagement here encompasses everything from online communication, online interaction with your customers, a mobile app, or it could be the technology behind a phone system. What the success factors behind that would be are increased awareness, accessibility, enhanced attractiveness, and really the opportunity for you as an organization to sell your brand and make your customers or members feel like valued members of your business, and for you to be an aspirational brand for them to work with. Decisioning or underwriting has a whole different set of criteria that will determine its success. In order to be successful with decisioning, you need to be able to respond quickly and accurately for the sake of you making the right decision for your business as well as for the customer or member. And it needs to be fair and inclusive. And when we talk about decisioning, we're not talking about or even expecting, or I actually don't think it's the right thing at all, to have 100% automated decisioning. But there needs to be a level of data analytics that is included in the decisioning process that might auto approve some applications, but I would expect a large number of the applications to be auto referred. So it goes through the initial decisioning process, and then it goes through to referral by a human being, by a human underwriter. I would expect to see fewer auto declines, or if there is an auto decline, as you see more in mainstream finance, I'd expect to see that there would be some alternative offered to support the member or customer when they're trying to find a loan, secure a loan. And then back office operations and technology. Success in back office operations and technology, that is efficiency, accuracy of data. This is where the core of your business is being run. And it needs to be informative. You need to be able to produce reports and to produce data that enables management to make well-informed, accurate decisions that are going to move your business forward. So there are the three pillars of success, and we'll come back to those. But if we break it down to the next level of granularity, we've got the functional model of a community lender. And the functional model is something that we use to understand how technology is being used by different community lenders. We break down each of the functions into each of the areas into high-level functions, and then we look at what is the technology that is supporting them. Not everything will necessarily have technology supporting them, but where they do, we'd like to understand when we're trying to understand our the lenders that we're working with. We'd like to understand who is the supplier behind each one of those boxes that you see on the screen. And what I've done on this slide is brought out the most used technologies according to our survey behind the boxes. So if we look at consumer engagement, for instance, the kind of teal, the darker teal boxes, we've got bespoke, which means that people have been building their own systems, and that's partly to do with control of the brand. And then K-Show, which you may have seen is now rebranded to Circle with an S. Nevo, Incuto, Progress and Viva IT. They are the most, from the 54 organisations who responded to our survey, they are the most used consumer engagement technologies. And we've done the same for core loan management, customer relationship management, decisioning, CRAs and open banking. And I want to take this opportunity just to give you a very, very brief introduction to open banking. I think that open banking in itself deserves a module in the toolkit because it is far-reaching in terms of it as a capability, and it is continuing to evolve. And also, not only the opportunity with open banking, but also the limitations of open banking need to be understood by those organisations that are using it. Open banking is, it came from a remedy from the Competitions and Markets Authority, the CMA, that was launched went live in January 2018. And the purpose of the remedy was to introduce more competition and to introduce more innovation to retail banks, and primarily the biggest retail banks in the UK. And so the first banks that went live are the group that is collectively known as the CMA 9, which are the 9 largest transaction banks in the UK. They went live at or near January 2018, and they have now they've now been used in the open banking world for various purposes. And I'm going to be talking specifically about how open banking is being used in community finance. Open banking in community finance is used as a means for third-party providers, TPPs, to access their customers' transaction data in their banking records. So as a third-party provider, if I'm regulated by the FCA as a third-party provider for open banking, then I am able to access, on behalf of my customers, their records on their current account. And you might say, well, why is that interesting? Well, it's interesting for all sorts of reasons and all sorts of use cases, but specifically for community finance, where open banking has been useful, is so that as a lender, you're able to have another view on the individual that you are lending to. And that's primarily to assess the affordability. But some are going further than that, and they are using open banking records, so transaction data, income and expenditure, as a means of determining the risk profile of that individual. Most organisations are still using CRA, so credit reference agency data, as a primary source, and they're supplementing it with open banking data. But some have moved so far as to no longer use CRA data and only depend on the open banking records. And we can go into more detail about open banking and why that might be a good or a bad idea in a subsequent module that we'll pick up specifically on open banking. So there's all of the technology that's being built in a community finance organization, and it needs to be done purposefully. And so that is why an IT strategy is so essential to every organization. It doesn't matter how big or small you are as an organization, it is essential that you have an IT strategy. But that IT strategy needs to be proportionate. So a small organization might be able to have an IT strategy that spans 2 pages of A4. A larger organization, a larger lender, might have a 50-page document that has been developed in partnership with a third party that breaks down the organization in more detail, and it proposes a roadmap for change. An IT strategy is a plan of action to create an information technology capability that enables the business strategy and goals. And that is the important piece. It enables the business strategy and goals. If you don't understand the strategy, then you can't write an IT strategy. If you don't understand the business strategy, you can't write an IT strategy. Your IT strategy needs to have certain characteristics. It needs to be linked to the business goals, as I've said. It also derives a set of principles as to how you as an organization are going to how you are going to act as a user of technology. Are you going to be a pioneer, a leader of technology? Are you going to build an in-house capability? Are you going to be dependent on third-party suppliers? So you set out a series of principles that help to derive what your IT in the future might look like. And then understand what are your priorities. And these are generally business priorities that are driven largely by the funding available and the capacity that you have available in your teams to effect the change that's required in IT. And it develops business cases. So whenever any technology investment is made, you need to have a business case in order to justify that spend. However, a big caveat, not every technology program will have a return on investment business case, a classic return on investment business case. Business cases can be more nuanced, and they can be simply building a platform that allows you to be agile and able to flex in the future, that in itself becomes the return on investment business case, or the business case that facilitates growth or an opportunity to merge with another provider, as an example. And it defines the roadmap for change. And in an IT strategy, you would typically see a very high-level roadmap spread over probably 3 to 5 years that would say where you're going to be at the end of each of the years. And it gives you an opportunity to scan the market and look at other opportunities and what others are doing in the market in terms of innovations and opportunities to bring efficiencies into your IT estate. But without an IT strategy, your use of technology is not directed. It's rudderless in terms of directing the right technology spend to the right business problem. And you easily succumb to those fintechs who come knocking on your door and tell you that they've got the new thing, the new shiny technology that becomes irresistible. So if it doesn't fit with your IT strategy, then you don't buy that technology. So an IT strategy is essential and is going to be the first of the modules that we're going to be launching in the technology toolkit that we're going to talk about a bit later. But this gives me an opportunity to introduce Jeff from Central Liverpool and Simon from Clockwise to talk about their use of technology in their businesses.
Thanks, Simon. I'm Jeff McKay from Central Liverpool Credit Union, and when Jonathan asked me to make this, give you this brief chat based on our IT strategy. But as that last slide showed, that we started with the business strategy. We reviewed our business completely about 5 years ago, I think 2016, and we knew that we were very much paper-based, very manual. We needed to be able to grow, to reach members who weren't reliant on our living near our branches. All our members we saw lived in and around where our branches were. We didn't really have any membership outside of that sector. So we wanted to grow the credit union across our whole common bond, and we couldn't really even think of opening new branches. We didn't want to open new branches, so we had to find a different route. In developing our strategy, we actually developed a 5-year plan. The first thing we understood was that our basic core back office system, as we call it, I think core platform is the correct technology, but we recognised that the back office system we used wasn't fit for purpose. It just wasn't right. It was fine, it was functional, it was basic, but it didn't give us any ability to analyse, produce management reports, look at the performance across memberships, across areas, across incomes or values. There's a whole range of analysis that we couldn't do. So we decided that we had to change our back office system, which is probably the most traumatic thing a credit union can ever do, because of all the data that needs to be transferred across, the integrity of the data, the way we operate, the staff training that's needed to use a new system. But we had to, in order to get what we wanted, we had to go down that route. And unfortunately, in doing it, we chose the wrong new core platform. It was just totally wrong for us for a number of long-winded reasons. It's not worth going into, but we at least quickly realised that it was wrong for us, and went again through the process of identifying another back office system, which we think now we've got it fully integrated. We think it's one of the best things we ever did. We got the right system that provided what we need, and what we need was obviously set by the business strategy. It gave us all the management reporting, the analytics that we need. It's totally flexible to our needs, so if you want to add things or change things, it's completely flexible. It's got a great backup service, the team behind it, the support, the training, the online support, the help desk, everything is absolutely fantastic. So I think it's very important, as well as your business strategy, to have the right back office system or core platform. You've got to have that right. And luckily, after a couple of bad efforts, if you like, we were able to get it spot on. But having the back office system is nothing. It's a bit like Jonathan's city with no people. We needed to expand our membership, and just having a really good back office system didn't really do that for us. We needed to get online. We needed to be where the banks, the building societies, the finance companies and other credit unions already were. We had to offer an online service, and we didn't know anything about it. We knew what we wanted to do, but we didn't know how to go about it. Luckily, in the credit union sector, I think it seems to be everyone knows each other, and we knew someone who was just right for that to help us. It was a fellow called Adrian Davis, who you might know, and Adrian is, I think, fairly widely acknowledged as a bit of an expert in credit union matters, and he was involved in developing one of the companies that was on a previous slide, it's called Nest Egg, which was originally intended to be what's called a decision engine, which helps once you've got your loan application, you put the details in, and the decision engine comes out. It tells you whether you should accept the decision or not, and it refers to a credit reference agency. It looks at the credit checks and so on. So we decided we'd sign up with them. There was one that the Credit Union Expansion Project brought out called automated lending. I think it was the automated lending decision, which was ALD, which we were using at the time, but we felt it wasn't exactly what we wanted. And that's funny enough, that's where I first met Adrian, when he was working on that system. And so we changed to Nest Egg. It was cheaper than ALD, and it was better for us because we could influence the loan decisions in terms of the rules that were applied within the decision engine. So if you were of a certain income, certain defaults, certain payments missed, so on, then a certain rule would apply. We were able to influence that rule and how and when it was applied to the decision. So we've got far more accepts and refers than we would normally have previously. We were getting more or less all declines. So that was really good for us. But we still didn't have the online capability. And so what we did was we worked with Adrian and Nest Egg to put onto the front of Nest Egg an automated loan application service. And Adrian was able to work to get an interface between our website and Nest Egg. So from a member's point of view, they'd go on our website, they'd see the loan that they want, they'd click apply, and the system would then automatically go straight through to Nest Egg. The member would think they're still on our website, but they were actually in Nest Egg. They'd input their details, and then everything would flow through the decision engine, and it would end up in our mailbox. And it would be an application from Tom Jones, and it says we would refer this decision, or we accept the decision, or would say decline the decision, and we then look at the resulting output. So now we had an online loan application service, but we didn't have an online member onboarding or member joining service, so we needed that. So we asked Adrian through Nest Egg, could he do an ID check as well as a credit check? And he was able to use a partner organisation, which is GB Group, I think, that they were able to provide all the necessary ID checks. So we had exactly the same process. Someone would go onto our website, say they want to join us, click on the button, and would feed through into the application process, put the details in, and then they filter through the ID check and would come out with us that yes, they're fine, they're not criminals or anything like that, and we could accept them as members. So now we had an online loan application, online membership, everything was building up and building up. And then came COVID. So we already had plans within our business strategy to allow electronic signatures, so people could sign the credit agreement at home rather than having to make an appointment and come into the branch. But COVID sort of hurried that along, and we had to really go for it. This is where, again, Jonathan was mentioning APIs. This is where APIs came in, because we were able to use fintech businesses as APIs to integrate them to our systems, and we were able to use a company called Signable. So when the offer of a loan was made, the member accepted it, we then emailed the credit agreement through Signable to the member. They signed it, sent it back, and we then paid the money into their bank. So everything flowed really smoothly. We also had a situation where members would normally come into the office to get our bank details to set up a standing order, because we didn't like to release their bank details for security reasons. Or they would come in to transfer their benefits into our bank rather than their own. And we couldn't do that because of COVID. So we had to set up direct debits, which we didn't have at the time. Again, through Adrian, we used a company called Go Cardless and set that up, and now we have direct debits. So we've used a number of different companies and effectively a consultant in Adrian to show us what to do, how to do it. And right now we're still developing things, but right now we've got fully automated online services, and if they don't want to, our members don't need to come anywhere near us. So but the first thing I'd recommend is we need a strategy for the business rather than technology, and then the technology to fit in with that. Okay, so now I'll hand over to Simon.
Hi, thanks, Jeff. So I'm the IT manager at Clockwise, and I'm going to talk a little bit about our approach to technology. So first of all, just a bit of background on Clockwise. Clockwise is a community credit union based in Leicester. We have approximately 16,000 members and 10 million in assets. And the lending side of the business is mainly low value loans, but high volumes. And most of the borrowers would be considered financially excluded or vulnerable. My background is in technology and specifically software development. And I started my role at Clockwise in 2017 and was given the task of modernising and enhancing the use of technology within the credit union. My first job really was to devise an IT strategy to support the business plan. So Clockwise already had a business plan and a strategy, and I came in and helped to develop the IT strategy. It was focused around increasing lending and improving digital services for members. So initially, the directors agreed a 3-year strategy, which has now been extended, and it's based around 4 themes. They're IT security, member digital, integration, which is all about APIs, and people-focused software. The decision was made quite early on that we would make technology an integral function within the business and to build up a team to deliver the enhancements in-house. So we currently have 9 employees working within our technology team, covering roles such as software development, IT operations, project management, data analysis. Back in 2017, when we made that decision to go in-house, it was a relatively easy decision to make, because at that time we were quite dissatisfied with the existing suppliers, a lack of a shared vision, and we wanted to make a long-term commitment to continual improvement, not just a one-off project, but something that would go on for a number of years and would build up intellectual property within the credit union. So by deciding not to outsource, we've been able to retain sort of greater control and target our resources in the areas which we think would have the greatest impact. We adopted an agile approach, so organising our teams, our IT teams, into using a Scrum Agile project management framework, which is a framework that we use to manage the process within the business, to keep everybody else involved that's in the business, and it allows us to change direction and adapt quickly when needed. So most of the development has been in-house, but we have also established relationships with several fintechs and other providers on a kind of best of breed basis. So we'll go out and choose the services and providers that we want to integrate into our platform, as opposed to having that decided for us. And the first major project that we did was to migrate all of our infrastructure to the cloud and address security weaknesses. Since then, we've basically used the cloud and built everything native in the cloud and used that as a foundation to transform the credit union from what was a predominantly face-to-face service to a digital-led service. And before the pandemic, we had about 90% of the business originating online via a website or mobile app. And obviously this has increased even further during the pandemic, and at some point it's been 100% of business coming in that way. Much of our early effort was focused, like as Jeff was just really saying, was focused on loan origination. And we developed an automated process for loan origination centered around a custom decision engine, integration with open banking, which we did in February of 2018. We were one of the first credit unions to actually go live with open banking, integrations with faster payments and also car payments. And in December 2020, 43% of our loans were fully auto-decisioned, and we have a target of 50%. We don't really use credit scores, but instead we developed our own behavioural-based rules, and that's what we use to try and provide the auto-decisioning. Our fastest turnaround to date is less than 3 minutes from application start to faster payment being sent out. And our original target was to provide a 24/7 service. And we've done that. In December, for example, we paid out a loan on every single day of the month, including weekends and on Christmas Day. And we've been increasing the loan book by about 20% each year since the technology investment began, although obviously that has slowed now a bit with the pandemic. We also built a mobile app in 2018, which has become our most popular channel. And in the following year, we developed a customer relationship management system, which our member services team used to manage the member relationship. And last year, we introduced agency banking with our own sort code to provide real-time payments to members, and a data warehouse as well. We introduced data warehouse, which we use to provide management information and analytics. Our current projects for this year are to expand our use of the CRM, that's the customer relationship management system, into sales and marketing. And we have a dedicated team as well working on a new core system, which will replace the remaining parts of our legacy platform. And our main member development for this year is to introduce a digital current account, which is going to feature an own branded debit card, direct debit functionality, and also some of the popular features that are offered by the challenger banks, things like automatic savings and spending analytics. Our intention is to share either some or all of our technology with interested providers, so all the credit unions, on a not-for-profit basis. It's quite complex, but we are looking at how that could be achieved, whether that could be achieved. So I hope that's given you an insight into our approach at Clockwise, and I'll hand it back to Jonathan.
Sorry, Jonathan, I think you're on mute still.
When will I learn? It's just thank you very much, everyone, to Jeff and Simon. I think what that's done is it's shown how two very contrasting approaches to technology can be used and can be successful in their own right. I've just got a couple more slides that I'm just going to run through, and then we're going to open to Q&A. So thanks for the questions that have already been asked. We'll try to keep time for them. So out of our survey came 3 key findings, and I actually think they're more, it was evidence that supports our hypotheses rather than findings that were a particular revelation to anyone. First was that the legacy systems were creating a level of constraint, are creating a level of constraint with lenders who are finding it hard to evolve their businesses and flexibility specifically around their businesses. And I really want to make it very clear that this is not a legacy system bashing exercise at all. In fact, it's quite the opposite. We're working closely with technology providers, technology suppliers, and we want them to be successful. But it came through loud and clear in the survey that there was a frustration with some of the technologies in terms of the flexibility and the investment in development today. Technology capability. There is a shortage of IT capability in the sector. We talked about that earlier. In order to achieve the technology ambitions, this I think does need to be addressed, and this is something that we are going to work on in the first instance with the technology toolkit. And then the final one, funding. When we asked what the barriers were to success with technology, funding came through loud and clear as the #1 reason why lenders were finding it hard to engage more with technology. It's a double-edged sword, the fact that technology has been relatively cheap for the sector for so many years. It makes it very hard to move from that. But for the years that lenders have been operating in this low cost base, it has opened up the sector to many more opportunities for small lenders to come in and play. So I think that those three elements, they're all tightly interrelated, and we want to work with the sector to navigate them and to help overcome some of the challenges. So we talk about toolkit. I'm not going to go through this in any detail, but largely because this is very indicative. These are some of the modules that we're thinking about in terms of how we could help the sector. And it's important to note here, this is not just about webinars. This is about guides. It's about providing you with templates. It's about maybe finding some kind of procurement type effort where we can collectively procure for the sector in order to get economies of scale. But this toolkit should take us through from strategy through to delivery, and everything in between is we're going to be inviting partners, we're going to be inviting suppliers, we are going to be working with others in order to deliver this toolkit, because we don't have all the answers. We don't pretend to have all the answers, but we want to work with you and with others in order to progress this. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to pass now to James, who's going to take us through Q&A.
Thanks, Jonathan. And afternoon. Thanks for all of you who have sent in questions so far. I'll just try and skip through the ones we have. Where are we? Sorry, I think I might have gone. Sorry, I think I might have gone on mute there. Thanks for the questions you've sent through so far. Jonathan, I'm going to come to you first, if that's okay. I had a question from Darminder at Castle and Crystal Credit Union. Just any thoughts around Fair4All setting up a website penetration testing service that credit unions could buy at reasonable rates, as the private sector are charging an arm and a leg?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Darminder. Yeah, this is absolutely what we want to do. I mean, not necessarily specifically around pen testing, penetration testing. Sorry, go ahead, stop the acronyms or the abbreviations. We feel that we're in a good position to look at opportunities to generate some kind of purchasing power as a sector. And we will be open to that type of discussion as we work through the toolkit and work through the year, for sure. There are other ways of collaborating, and Simon picked up on one which was about sharing technology and sharing effectively the intellectual property that Clockwise have put into their technology as a means of upskilling and building a platform for the sector as a whole, rather than just for the credit union themselves. So yes, Darminder, absolutely, we think economies of scale is really important in this space.
Thanks, Jonathan. One more for you before I come on to Jeff and Simon. A question from Chris from Eastern Savings and Loans Credit Union. It's a question about mainstream financial service expenditure. So is the reason that's so significant because of their scale, or is it because they spend it inefficiently?
So that's a great question, and it's a combination of the two. So we look at mainstream finance, the big banks, and think, hey, they must be doing something really right, because they've got flash websites and they've got large customer bases. But actually, you scratch the surface and you look at their technology, and it is old. It's legacy technology in quite an extreme case, where in order for any of the mainstream banks to make any changes to their systems, they have to undertake major change programs, and they need to understand what the impact of that change is going to be on a very complex set of technology. So for them to affect any change, it's extremely expensive. And I think actually this is an opportunity for this sector, where the technology can be relatively more contained than it is in a mainstream bank, and it can be better understood because of the extent of the technology. And that in itself can enable more flexibility, agility, and lower costs in order to change. I don't think that I said that mainstream banks are spending in excess of 50% of their operational budget on IT. I don't think that's necessary. I'm not suggesting that that's a benchmark that everyone should be heading for. I think that more than 5% for sure, but the reality is you need to set where your IT spend is with your ambition and with the platform that you're trying to embark on implementing and then maintaining. Thanks, Jonathan.
A couple of questions now for you, Jeff, if that's okay, and a couple around systems and suppliers. So I think Lee Bonham was asking whether he could get details of the suppliers that you've been talking about. I'm sure that will be fine. We can share details at the end of the call. And I think there was another one, Matt Bland asked around which system that you're using now, Jeff, and that came in when you were talking about your core system, but I didn't catch whether you mentioned which system it was.
No, we're using a system which is provided by an Irish company called Wellington. The system's called Scion, but it's a great system. It's supported by a number of additional tools like a mobile app and online banking, and a management reporting tool as well. It's excellent, very good. It's expensive, but it's very good.
Okay, fab. Thanks, Jeff. And just another one from Boom Credit Union, just around your case study. So it's just interested in how the end-to-end processing times for decisioning were improved as a result of the tech and automation. And in addition to that, has the automation resulted in any variation in arrears and fraud?
Is that for me? It has. It's definitely, obviously, it's improved the decision time, the whole application time. A lot of the decisions are still referred because we need to build up the experience within the rules of the decision engine. But it has definitely improved the response time. Sorry, what was the second part?
It was around whether the automation has resulted in any variation in arrears and fraud.
No, there's no visible change. Our arrears and bad debt is going down, but that's not necessarily because of the application process. It's because of our credit control process. But no, there's no discernible difference.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. I think the last question we have from the Q&A at the moment is just a nice short one for you, Simon, if that's okay. And Rebecca was just asking how many staff you have, I assume in relation to your IT.
Yeah, so we have 9 full-time employees that are working in the technology team. Credit Union as a whole, I think around just under 30, I think it's about 29 employees in total. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Simon. I can't see any more in the Q&A at the moment. Very welcome. We're very happy to take some more. Also very happy to take any questions offline if you have them after the call. But for the moment, I think that's everything in the Q&A. So, Jonathan, if I hand back to you just to finish up, if that's okay.
Yep, absolutely. So thank you very much to everyone for joining this webinar. I hope you've found it helpful, and for those who are technologists, I hope it wasn't too much motherhood and apple pie, and those who aren't technologists, I hope it wasn't we weren't racing through acronyms and technical terms. It's very, very hard. It's surprisingly hard to judge this kind of thing. I think there's an opportunity here. I think there's a big opportunity to help and work with the sector and to collaborate as a sector around building the technology capability and achieving that goal of increasing technology and making technology a pivotal part of your business as you move forward, if it's the right thing for your business. So back to the strategy, if technology is the answer, then that's what you should be going for, but don't do technology for technology's sake. So I really want to just wrap up here and say thank you again to Jeff and Simon for joining us on the call. It was great to have your insights and your experiences from technology in your organisation. So thank you again. And as Jane said, if anyone's got any questions, then please do get in touch with us. We'll put up our contact details shortly. Please do get in touch with us, and we look forward to working with you over the course of the year as we launch the other components of the toolkit. Thank you very much.